Hey guys, listen up.
This is the SEC Insider Hit, powered by Miss Kelly Furniture, Mississippi's number one sleep store.
SEC Insider Hit today, brought to you by the Purple Mattress. Any of the 7 Miskelly sleep stores in Mississippi. The one and only Purple Grid, groundbreaking no-pressure gel technology, is the star of every Purple mattress at any of the Miskelly sleep stores in Mississippi. Wendy and I sleep on the Purple mattress. We love it, and you will too. Try one out today. ESPN 105.9 The Zone, the Out of Bounds Show. Welcome in our friend Tom Luginbill, National College Football Analyst with ESPN, among other things. Tom Luginbill, what's up, buddy?
Good morning, pal. How are you?
I'm good, man. You in Charlotte or on the road?
No, I'm in Charlotte. I head on the road this last weekend for my last XFL game. I've got Vegas at Seattle, so I got a long weekend with a red eye coming back. And then, we've been really ramping up our evaluation efforts, obviously, with the coaches being able to get on the road and the transfer portal now opening back up, and just had a recruiting update for player rankings. So things never slow down. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to miss the XFL, man. This has been some of the most fun I have had broadcasting in the last 18 years at this company.
That's great. That's what we need every now and then. Something a little, just even if it's just slightly, just a little new and different. I know you.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
And for you, you do both. You can do in studio, you can do the sideline, and you can do the color analyst in the booth. So I think that's probably been fun for you too.
It has. It's, I've always been one of those guys, the more you can do, the more valuable you are, and the harder it is for them to get rid of you, right? So, proving your value and proving your worth. I remember I was probably 2 years into ESPN. This would have been around 06, 07, and had one of our talent coordinators that said to me, hey, listen, have you ever considered anchoring a show or being utilized as a reporter? And I was so new to it. I was like, no, right now I'm just a studio analyst. And he said to me, if you get asked to do something, even if you're not sure you can do it, don't say no. Mm. So lo and behold, 18 years later, I was asked to be a sideline reporter. Then I was asked to be a field analyst plus a reporter. I did almost 8 years of studio shows where I was either the analyst or I doubled as the host and the analyst. And then, as you referenced, I've been a field analyst in the last 10 years of college football and ABC, and then doing, midweek MAC games and Sun Belt games up in the booth, and then being in the booth for the last 10 weeks here. So I just think it's really important in any line of work to diversify. Whatever your talents are, figure out a way to multiply them.
What's your favorite?
I would probably say, because the blend of challenge and interaction and being so up close and right next to it, I would say the field analyst role. Because the one thing that I get when I'm on the field down there is I can actually hear conversations that people at home can't hear. The guys in the booth can't hear. I can see things from a perspective that they can't see from their bird's eye view. And just having that energy and the sideline and the emotion, there's a lot of satisfaction to that. But I will say this, from a booth perspective, the XFL has been not only the most challenging job I've had here, but the most fun, because of all of the audio and all of the access, and it's a totally different broadcast. So, in the XFL, we as the broadcasters and the product on the field aren't necessarily the most important thing. The most important thing is the audio and the access. That's our bouncing ball. So we follow that bouncing ball, and then we respond off of it, where in a traditional broadcast, it's play-by-play sets up the play, color guy gives analysis after the play is concluded, and then on to the next play. Very formulaic. This is anything but formulaic. This thing can go in however many directions it could possibly go, and you never know what's coming, so it keeps you on your toes.
Oh, nice. So Vegas and Seattle this week. This is the last one for Tom Luginbill as far as XFL game. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Tell me, I want to talk recruit. You mentioned recruiting earlier. Can you, your number 16 prospect, Jamonta Waller out of Picayune? Can you tell me what you think about this young man? He is highly, highly rated.
Yeah, he is highly rated, and he's really, really gifted. I think the thing, you know how we keep hearing this term edge lately? Mm-hmm. Like, we've gone from using the outside linebacker term or the defensive end term, and we've now labeled the tweener guy, the in-between guy, as an edge player. That's what he is, all right? Because he's, he doesn't have tremendous length in the sense that he's not going to be a 6'5", 6'4", 6'6", hand on the ground defensive end, all right? But he's got a little bit more length than your traditional linebacker, and he's got natural pass rush instinct. So he's one of those guys that you want in an overhang position to where he's likely standing up the vast majority of the time. And do you remember Tim Williams at Alabama?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be kind of similar to the mold of Waller in the sense that not quite big enough to be an end, explosive skills off the edge, all right? Maybe not your true, physical, inside, rugged linebacker type. He's just kind of somewhere in between all of that. And we're seeing so many of those guys now because of the three-man front, right? Mm-hmm. And not just the 3-4, but the 3-3-5, the 3-5-3. Like, there has to be a guy that he's your Swiss Army knife. For Clemson, that was Isaiah Simmons. And we've seen guys, the linebacker, the true freshman that is going to be probably a top 3 overall pick, the kid at LSU, that is just an absolute terror. And now his name escapes me. I have no idea why. Under Armour All-American, top 5 player for us in the 2022 class.
We're looking it up.
40. Oh, Harold Perkins.
Boom. That guy's number 40. He's a freak.
He's a freak. He's an absolute freak. But again, not big enough to be a defensive end, not your traditional linebacker, but he could play every single role within the box.
Okay. Where do you project? I know I asked you this like 9 months ago, but I want to do this again because he's such a phenomenal player. Where do you project Suntarine Perkins again, Luke's?
Outside linebacker and potentially as an edge player. Now he's bigger at the same stage than Waller is currently at the same time. If you were to compare the two of them,
okay.
But similar. But the other thing too with Suntarine, initially we had him in our athlete category because the first 2 years when we were watching him, he was far more of an offensive player than he was a defensive player. He was kind of a sub-package guy that was sprinkled in on defense here and there, but he looked like a wide receiver, H-back, tight end type of guy. And so up until we got him into the senior year, and then we put him at linebacker in the Under Armour game, and he might have been pound for pound the best defensive player in the game. That's how good he's going to be, in my opinion. Now, I'm basing that on physical attributes. I'm not basing that on, any knowledge of something that could arise that we don't have a predictive measure of.
Sure.
But his skill level and instinct for the position, I just think are outstanding. I really do.
Yeah, he doesn't get to campus until this summer, but he sounds, which is unheard of now, but he sounds, as far as physical attributes, like a guy who could probably figure it out pretty quick in June and July in the weight room and 20 or so practices. I would think and that's their weaker unit this year. Golding will find a spot for him probably pretty early, if at all possible. Luke?
I would be stunned. I would be stunned if in the opening week depth chart he's not in the 2 deep.
Yeah. That's in
which
fact
means he's going to play at least 50% of the snaps and probably eventually become the full-time guy.
Okay. Somebody told me he's the best prospect to come out since Willie Gay. And they mentioned Charles Cross, but Cross was a late bloomer? We went through this huge deal where we had all these guys coming out, A.J. Brown and Jeffrey Simmons and Fletcher and Chris Jones and DK, just crazy. And then Willie Gay was kind of the last, and Cam Akers, but last guy. Then we went through a little dip. But Charles Cross was a late bloomer. I think Suntarine is a guy who could get on the field and be rolling around there game 3 or 4, maybe even a starter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no question. And he's an upgrade. I mean, when you get to the level where you're recruiting and a freshman's an upgrade, you're doing a pretty good job.
Sure. This is a big year. You've got Mississippi kids. How about this kid, Daniel Hill, that's in your ESPN 300 from Meridian? He's listed as a tight end, but I think he's going to have several options as to what his college coach or coaches want to do with him. But what's your evaluation on Daniel Hill out of Meridian?
Well, it's interesting you reference, the tight end position. He's another one of those guys. I don't think he's tall enough to play tight end. We would put him in more of an athlete type of category to figure out like where he could project. He's built kind of like a fullback in many senses. So if he were to play in the offensive side of the football, he would have to be a little bit more of your traditional or your non-traditional H-back movement type of guy, as opposed to a hand-on-the-ground type of player. But he may also be a guy that you look at and you say, dude, this guy might end up, being a defensive guy.
Right.
And our take on that with high school kids in particular is that if the guy can play football and he shows natural instincts and he meets, whatever you deem the measurable standard needs to be, okay, then you take him and you worry about the position later. You figure it out. You throw him in a training camp, see how he survives. How does he play, and can he adapt and can he learn? And then, okay, let's just say it doesn't work at one position. You say, okay, well, this guy's scheme versatile. He can play on both sides of the ball. Let's move him around and figure out what you're going to do with him once you get him. Nobody has to sit there and say, well, we're going to recruit this guy as this, and this is the only place we're going to look at him. I think he's one of those guys that they can kind of figure it out as they go along.
Okay, let's stay on this. Starkville High School, which has produced some insane talent over the years. Braylon Burnside is number 135 on your ESPN 300. 6 foot 195. He's an athlete. What is your evaluation of Braylon Burnside out of Starkville, Luke's?
Well, number one, he's a multi-sport athlete, which I think is important. I think that's more important maybe than most things nowadays, as far as being able to participate and not overtrain or overemphasize one position. I think he probably projects as a safety or a wideout, depending on what the need is or where he feels most comfortable. Good size, not elite. He's not a big 6'2", 6'3", 210-pound imposing kid. He's about 6 foot, 185, 190 pounds. Has tested really well in the past, which means that when you're trying to see if the in-person evaluation and the measurables and the testing match up with the tape, with him it does.
Okay. Love it. All right. Jeffrey Rush out of Pascagoula is committed to
down on the coast.
Yes. And that when I was growing up, Shane Matthews' dad was at Pascagoula, and Buckley and Shane and all those dudes came out in the late 80s, and they were unbelievable. And they won the state championship and so on. Pascagoula kind of went away for a while. But Jeffrey Rush is listed at 6'3", 255. He's number 138 on your ESPN 300. How does he project for you and your team, Luke's?
So he's one of those guys that right now is a bit of a tweener between being an inside guy or an edge guy. He doesn't quite have the length that you would like to have on the edge in terms of, being a 6'5", 6'6" guy with really, really good arm length. And he's also not necessarily built yet to play the tackle spot. I think that eventually that's where he'll grow into, because unless he grows in terms of length and height, his natural position, given his leverage and his body build, is to probably become a 280-pound guy, 285, 290-pound guy, and play on the inside as a disruptive, probably 3 technique. I don't know if he'll ever get big enough to be a guy that you'd say, okay, well, we gotta play with this guy on the nose or in the 1 technique gap where he's going to take on double teams and he's going to be able to anchor versus a point of attack. That's not what type of player he is. So I think it depends on what his growth level will end up being.
Okay.
Does he gain length? And if he does, he can stay on the edge. If he doesn't, he's going to have to gain weight and he'll move down.
Okay, so at 255, could always get to 285 maybe over a few years and so on, grow into that.
Oh, sure.
And plug the middle. Tom Luginbill, ESPN 300. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Of course, Luke's has been involved with the Under Armour All-American game for how many years, Tom?
Oh, let's see. It started in 2008, so
15.
a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Crazy, right?
That is
Gone
crazy.
fast, I'll tell you that much.
I know, too fast. Cameron Beavers from Bay Springs is 196 on the ESPN 300. Defensive tackle. Y'all have got him at about 6'3", 315. What can you tell me about Cameron Beavers?
Now, that's your typical inside guy that we were just talking about. That's your true nose, your 1 technique, space eater, occupier of space, just really big and strong at the point of attack. Now, the question you have with guys like that sometimes is how often can they stay on the field, or for how long can they stay on the field? Because, conditioning comes into play, and, if you're an early down guy, there's generally a reason, and it has to do with stature and build. And so what I always look at with guys of that size is what type of body composition do they have, and what type of condition are they going to put themselves in as far as work ethic and being in a position to where they may look super duper big, and they are, but they're in tremendous shape, because that's going to keep you on the field longer. Now, I still think size, when it comes to that type of size, is going to limit you to early down production. But, what does everybody want to do with early down production? They want the offense to be in 3rd and long, right? So if you're in the game on the 1st and 2nd down, you're stopping the run, and you're doing some pretty good things, that guy goes off the field. Now all your jackrabbits come on the field, and you start rushing the passer. Right. So, obviously there's a huge correlation between, size and body type and how many downs you're going to play based off the position and how big you are at defensive tackle.
This class is loaded in Mississippi. It's deep.
It really is. It's a really good class.
I'm hearing from people who believe that guys coming in at like the 22nd rated player, 24th, 28th, are dudes that can play Power 5. So we went through a little bit of a dip, and now we've got another loaded class. Let's go to Chris Davis Jr., athlete out of Picayune, Mississippi. He's not big, but he's talented. He's committed to Ole Miss. Where does Chris Davis Jr. project for you?
That's a great question, because you just mentioned the size, and so I think he's going to end up being like a scat back, like a dynamic utility weapon, the guy that comes in on passing down, the guy that can line up in the backfield and then motion out of the backfield, and now you got to worry about him in the passing game, and be your guy that's like your jet sweep, end around, bubble screen guy on the perimeter that you could get into space, let him make people miss, because he's not going to be a guy. If you're committed to a place like Ole Miss and you're that size at running back, it's going to be tough for you to hold up as an every down back, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that he's going to, and it doesn't mean you're a role player. It just means you're a utility player. You're a player that has a unique skill set that can be utilized. And it's interesting, too, because there's not a lot of guys like that Lane has actively pursued, right? Or had coached at a place like Alabama or SC or some of these other places. So a little bit of a deviation from the type of back Ole Miss has been playing with.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. I like where you went there compared to what they went through out at Southern Cal even at Bama to a certain extent, but definitely Southern Cal. I tell you what, man, Lane Kiffin he's like a soundbite Hall of Fame type guy. I mean, he's gotten to the point where, because he's an introvert, as you know, and
Yep.
but he's gotten to where he's really comfortable in front of the microphone. And I mean, he's just talking and talking and talking about the different, I guess, things that are happening within the world of college football. And it's really content and radio gold for us, Luke's.
Well, when you have a guy like him that's not afraid to voice his opinion, he's the SEC's version of Mike Gundy.
Yes.
Like, Mike Gundy in the Big 12 does not give two licks about what anybody thinks of him. He doesn't care how his opinion comes off and what type of criticism he'll receive. He calls it like it is. He calls it like he sees it. Does it make him right every time? No, but it's refreshing, and you at least appreciate it. Like, he's one of the guys when we do coaches meetings that, when you ask him a question, he's not going to give you the typical coach speak and be all paranoid, not want to give anything away. I mean, he'll tell you. I had him last year. We had Texas, Oklahoma State, and they had come off of a double overtime loss to TCU the week before, and they should have beat TCU. And then the week before that, they had played, and they won, I think, at Baylor, and Spencer Sanders gets hurt, right? So we're going into the Texas game. They're hosting it in Stillwater. And he comes right on the call and says, we asked, how you could tell on tape that Spencer didn't look all the way healthy, and he didn't look like he was able to utilize the full strength of his arm and his capability. And Mike Gundy goes, well, that's probably because he has not stepped foot on the practice field in 12 days.
Wow.
We're like, what? He goes, yeah, we had to sit him. He goes, the only way we could get him ready to actually play the game is he could not practice. He couldn't throw. He didn't go through non-padded drills. And this is where we're at right now. It's not ideal, but it's the only way to get us to the point where we can put our best people on the field. And like, most coaches wouldn't tell you that.
No.
They don't want that out there, and so that's where Lane, I think, has a lot of similarities with him.
Yeah. Gundy is, man, he's the gift that keeps on giving. Golly.
I love him.
Blake, you told me he and Whittingham, now that Ferentz has stepped down, are the longest tenured college football coaches in the country, I think, Power 5. Incredible. Wow. All right, Tom Luginbill, have a good trip to Seattle, and we'll catch you up next week or the next, depending on your travel and everything that's going on. Thanks for hitting us up on the Mississippi prospects. That was awesome. I could tell by the text line.
You put me on the spot right there. You don't even tell me.
I'm sorry. Well, you were great, man. I mean, we went through and you nailed it. And this is a huge class for. Well, Arnett and Kiffin really are trying to keep some of these dudes in state. And then you got Saban, Kirby, Freeze, and Kelly circling. So,
and that's an indicator, Bo, is when if you have a state in a year like that, and your in-state schools can keep them home, it's a reflection on perception being changed.
True. Well, Mullen and Freeze did a great job. Leach and Kiffin have kept several. They're not going to keep them all, but you got to get at least a handful of the top ones and then fill it out. All right, bud. We'll talk next week. Thanks, man.
All right, buddy.
The Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105 Down the Zone, is brought to you by Sound and Communication, soundcomav.com. Don't forget, first pitch for the Mississippi Braves today at 11:05 in Pearl. First pitch, 11:05.